we are starting to see what I would call minor fissures. And that's understandable. There are a lot of politicians nervous about the midterms next year.
It is time for the Trump dump. This evening we're joined by the US reporter Steve Herman. Steve, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to hear your voice again. We've just actually finished hearing from Donald Trump. We're just going to take a quick sift through what he's had to say. While we do that behind the scenes, let's move on to the Paramount Warner Brothers. Well, there's all sorts of things going on here. Paramount Skydance has made a rival offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery for $108 billion. That's $25 billion more than Netflix's accepted offer for the entertainment company last Friday. So there's a bit of a bidding war going on here. Paramount is backed by the Ellison family, who are big Trump supporters, as well as Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's working on the deal too. Gosh, this is where politics and broadcasting collide, isn't it? What are the political ramifications if Paramount were to buy Warner Brothers?
Well, there are all sorts of concerns about monopoly, more control of the news under one umbrella, and an umbrella that seems to be in sync to some degree with Donald Trump. Although the president was just asked about this a few minutes ago at the end of a cabinet meeting that was mostly about farm aid. And he made a couple of interesting comments. One, he said, we're going to have to look at the percentages, meaning what is the market share that Netflix has versus Paramount to address any sort of monopoly concerns. The reality is they're both about the same. I don't think that's going to be the true issue in the deal. And he was also asked about, as you mentioned, Jared Kushner is part of the investor package with Paramount to try to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. He sidestepped that, saying, I don't really know about it, and Jared's busy with the Middle East. And as you've observed, the president is playing both sides day to day. He made some critical comments about Paramount last evening on social media because of an interview that aired on CBS's 60 Minutes, which is under the control of Paramount Skydance. The head of Netflix has been schmoozing a lot with Donald Trump down at Mar-a-Lago for some months now. And the president's made it clear he is injecting himself into this deal. And so it's going to be a question perhaps of who can flatter the president the most, and maybe what they can promise him after he gets out of office. But regardless of whether this flips to Paramount or stays with Netflix, this is going to be in the courts for many years. There's EU regulatory issues as well. So nothing's really going to happen that fast as far as the viewers are concerned.
Okay. And what do Netflix do in the meantime? Do they up their offer? Do they take a step away from this because Paramount will be hard to compete with?
Well, it's a poker game, right? Who's going to ante up more? And there's all sorts of speculation now that Paramount will try to match, I forget what the figure is, $2.8 billion of basically the clause that says if this deal collapses, you'll still get this money. So at this point, it's a poker game. And until this morning, you could say, well, maybe Netflix had the upper hand, but I would hesitate to make any predictions about which way this one is going to go.
Okay, all right. Let's take a little walk through. I'm going to go to our last story now, just so we've got a chance to update on Donald Trump and whether he said anything significant this evening. Republicans made fun of President Trump before winning the party's 2024 primary and then switched to kissing his ass. That is according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, a supporter turned critic of Trump. Greene was speaking to Leslie Stahl, the host of CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday night. Let's have a listen.
I watched many of my colleagues go from making fun of him, making fun of how he talks, making fun of me constantly for supporting him, to when he won the primary in 2024, they all started, excuse my language, Leslie, kissing his ass and decided to put on a Maga hat for the first time.
There we go. Greene announced she would resign from Congress in the new year. Where does this put us? Where does this rate Maga support for Donald Trump? Is it drying up? Is this just a one-woman fight?
Well, I think you have to look at the evolution of Marjorie Taylor Greene here. And as the president said, he jilted her. And she was facing death threats after Trump became critical of her because she became slightly critical of the president. That's the price you pay if you fall out of favor, even as a Maga loyalist with Donald Trump. So the speculation is she's setting herself up for perhaps to run for statewide office in Georgia, or looking to be a commentator on one of the cable TV networks. Being a member of Congress in the House of Representatives does not pay that much money, but as you may be aware, to be a commentator on Fox or CNN or MS Now is fairly lucrative. So I don't think this has so much to do about politics, rather this particular lawmaker's future ambitions. I wouldn't read too much into it as far as a big split in MAGA. We are starting to see what I would call minor fissures. And that's understandable. There are a lot of politicians nervous about the midterms next year, and the Republicans could get a shellacking and lose control of the House. But also, we're beginning to see perhaps the beginnings of shifts in loyalty or backing certain horses in the horse race for the next presidential election, and who would take the crown, so to speak, that Donald Trump is wearing as head of this MAGA movement.
Yeah, she was asked a few things, wasn't she? Asked whether her fellow politicians in Congress were afraid to speak out against Trump and even received death threats as a result. And she said they were terrified to step out of line and get a nasty Truth Social post on them. I mean, how much of what she said is true? Is she true about people making
true.
fun of Donald Trump?
Yeah, no, what she's saying is absolutely spot on. But we have to remember, this is a person who not too long ago was talking about conspiracy theories and forest fires and Jewish space lasers. So, you know, you could ask yourself, what is her real credibility here?
Okay, all right, we'll leave MTG back in her box and talk about Ukraine. And Zelensky saying he's not reached a deal with President Trump on ceding Ukrainian land after the US president accused him of not reading his peace plan properly. Zelensky had an in-person meeting with Keir Starmer today, France's Emmanuel Macron and Germany's Friedrich Merz. They were all at Downing Street with the European leaders discussing the future of the Donbass. I mean, Donald Trump has indicated in that national security strategy that the US wants a closer relationship with Russia. We know that there's a peace deal on the table. Forgive me. It is thought to favour Russia. We don't know much about what else is in it. Where does Volodymyr Zelensky go from here, Steve?
He's in a tough spot. And yes, let's see with this EU meeting coming up, what is it, a week or 10 days from now, whether the EU is able to put up a unified front in support of Ukraine and give everything that President Zelensky wants to have from the Europeans. He's definitely in a very precarious situation with Donald Trump, as we've seen for some years now. And you're right, this national security strategy document that just came out is very kind towards Moscow. It barely makes any mention of Ukraine. It talks about Ukraine remaining as a sovereign state, but doesn't talk about Ukraine keeping the borders that it had before the full-scale invasion by Russia. So if you know, Volodymyr Zelensky has a lot of reasons to be very, very worried, where Vladimir Putin, time is on his side, right? He can just, the longer this goes on, presumably he believes the better it is for Russia, and in this war of attrition, the weaker that Ukraine will become, and put him in a better bargaining position if he even wants to do any bargaining at all.
Yeah, look, there's been a lot of outcry here about this national security strategy, talking about how Europe is at risk of civilizational erasure. For sort of an America First document, it talks an awful lot about the issues facing Europe, including the activities of the European Union and other transnational bodies, it says, that undermine political liberty and sovereignty, migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, censorship of free speech, suppression of political opposition, cratering birth rates, the loss of national identities and self-confidence. I mean, this is weighing into Europe and European culture, community, political approach in a way that seems odd for a national security strategy.
Oh, yes. Well,
what do you think of this?
This is not your typical national security strategy, nor is it your typical U.S. Presidential administration. And this is very much in line with what we've been hearing from the far right, whether it's in London or Warsaw for a long time. And that is basically, Europe should be for white people. And there are those on the far right here in the United States that are part of the Maga movement that also adhere to that theory. And it fits in, as we've just been talking about, with this getting into a closer relationship with Moscow, which has very similar views as well. So I don't think anyone should be shocked by any of this. It is surprising, though, to see it articulated bluntly in such a document as the national security strategy of the United States.
Yeah, look, it says that European allies are facing a civilizational erasure, as I've said, and said within a few decades at the latest, certain NATO members will become majority non-European. So they are, tying this to NATO for relevance, I suppose. But it certainly has caused some raised eyebrows over here, Steve, I can tell you. Look, thank you for being with us. It's a great pleasure to speak to you. US reporter Steve Herman there. Steve, take care.